All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program. You know we're talking Johnny Cuba, European roots, a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Go to johnnycuba.us. Use the Johnny Locator. You'll find the nearest location to you. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us now, ESPN WNBA Analyst. She also does some play-by-play out there as well. Our friend is Marino. Good to see you again, Maria. How are you?
It's good to see you, Zaz. You know, I'm keeping the head above water. Have a 4-month-old baby, so you know how that can be. But yes. Excited to be back in the mix with you.
Yeah, so you know, I wanna hit on some WNBA here with you. I saw you on a broadcast recently with Artie Chambers. I guess you guys were doing a watch along, but I also saw, you know, talking about the finances in the WNBA, which of course that whole conversation was sparked very publicly from the All-Star game. The question that I have, can you help explain to me the financial situation? What I mean by that is there's this number out there. The WNBA loses $50 million a season. Like, is that real? Do we even know what the number with that?
Well, so let me clarify. The reported figure and the latest that I saw was in 2024, they lost 40 million. Originally, it was projected to be 50, ended up lowering it down to 40 per reports. But prior to that, Zaz, the number that was out there ever since Adam Silver discussed it back in 2018 was that the W loses about 10 mil per season. Now, the increased figure, again, these are reports, from last season could easily be explained by the fact that they added charter flights for the first time, which that alone was about $25 million. So there, you know, there's obviously two narratives, because whenever you have a collective bargaining agreement coming up, I think it behooves a league to pick and choose when they want to celebrate all of the growth and, you know, what a great investment it is versus, well, you know, we've lost money, because there's always leverage to be had with when you're bargaining with player salaries and things of that nature. So you just got to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But I think what's so crucial to understand, and what people sometimes don't wrap their head around immediately, is that this new CBA would come into effect in 2026, right? And that coincides with a brand new media rights agreement that was negotiated last season in conjunction with the NBA. And what that agreement did was it raised, you know, instantly raised income being earned by the W by almost 4 times. So the reported figure that the current deal that they're on is about 60 million per year. That jumps up to 200 mil. And that's before you even add in other deals. So part of the deal that they made with ESPN, with Amazon, with NBC was we can also add additional deals. They already announced they're renewing their deal with Ion. The reported figure is that's not out there yet. We don't know what that is worth, but we can assume that it's more than what they had before. They could still renew their deal with CBS. And so you're looking at, just from that new media rights deal alone, the W should be in the green. But then you throw in the fact that we have reports that the 3 latest franchises that were just announced that are going to be expansion teams, so Cleveland, Detroit, Philly, they are each shelling out 250 mil to join up in this league. And you juxtapose that with less than 2 years ago, Golden State, the price was only 50 million. Yeah. And now, Zaz, we have valuations reported by Sportico that are putting the Golden State Valkyries at a $500 million value. So, I mean, talk about, you know, instant ROI. And then, you know, I think back to, this is something that Ari pointed out on our ESPN postgame show recently, like Mark Davis paid $2 million for the Las Vegas Aces back in 2021. And, you know, that they're valued at like over 250 million now. And then how about the New York Liberty when they sold to the Size, which is they're part of the Brooklyn Nets ownership? That reportedly was, they paid about 15 million in 2019. They're worth, over 400 million. And so you're seeing like this ROI pretty rapidly here. And so it's just so clear, like all these signs are pointing to
they're growing.
Yeah, it's just pointing to a much more financially stable situation, and therefore a situation where, a league where these players they're very underpaid, Zaz. I mean, maybe you could have argued 5 years ago, what the last CBA 2020, that was really prior to them just having this massive growth here. Really the period of the last 5 years, it's been year over year growth. We know they then took that to a new level last year and just really exploded. And so, I just feel like it's so important to understand this is a CBA that's about the future, not about the past. And we have, hardcore, dollars and cents that we see are coming in. And as I continue to ramble, the one other thing, I think is important to note, with all these new teams, there's going to be more games. And once again, the attendance is up this year. Even with Caitlin Clark sidelined for the most of the year, attendance is still continuing to go up. And so these owners, if they're going to see more games, that's ultimately going to bring in more revenue as well.
That's the important part that you mentioned there, is we're talking about future growth here and projecting future growth here. So even if they are losing money these last few years, okay, that's fine. But we're talking about projecting future growth. So I wonder, what did you think of the way that the players handled the All-Star situation? Because for instance, if we're talking about projecting future growth, if we're wearing shirts that says, pay us what you owe us, that sounds like they've been getting shortchanged on money for a league that was likely losing money. Like the wording on that was probably weird for people like yourself who unlike yourself may not understand that we're really talking about projecting future growth here.
So I'll be honest with you, Zaz. When I first saw the shirts, I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty bold. My initial reaction was, I think you could have gotten the point across by simply saying, pay us what we're worth or something to that effect. However, I would just like to say, from their perspective, I can understand when they're looking at all these team valuations and seeing these ownership groups, purchase teams and having this instant ROI. I can see why they're like, okay, we kind of, we set this league up to this point. Now we're at a point where you're investing because it's a good investment. You are already, you've taken that investment and you've basically, now if you were to go and sell the team, you're making a pretty penny on that. And so it's clear, like, now you owe us a little bit of that pie that we helped build. And then also, I just think, Zaz, a part of that sort of aggressive language, I think, stems from historically, there has been mistreatment of women's athletes. They've had to really stand up for, what they should be getting paid. There has not always been this, like, yeah, we're going to do right by you, this like good faith, like that hasn't really existed in women's sports up until recently. I think you can make an argument too that a lot of the NBA owners that were involved in the W in the past never took it seriously, never treated it as more than a side hustle. They could have done things earlier on to make this league more successful faster, and they didn't, because they didn't have that, that long-term vision.
What are some things now that the league should be doing better to make it more successful? Like, I've seen people recently who were talking about the Stud Buds stream during the All-Star, that was better promotion for the WNBA than maybe the league has ever done.
Well, it's so interesting because, Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, talks about when she was brought on, there was like one person working in the marketing department, and now there's like 25. So, that just goes to show you right there that when you talk about resources, there were some limitations in what the W could, feasibly do. But as far as, improvement, I think a big part of it too, Zaz, and this is I don't even know if this is necessarily on the W. I think this is the world at large, but like the media coverage was just non-existent for a very long time. And, again, in the last 5 years or so, that's increased more. Social media, has
What do you
helped a
make of the
lot.
way what do you make of the way the league is covered
Well,
nowadays?
I think it's night and day. I mean, the fact you and I are talking about it, number one, I mean, you know how it was. I mean, 5 years ago, you would never, you couldn't, you'd still to this day, I turn on sports radio and very rarely, I mean, I think ESPN, the network side does a good job. And obviously they're a partner, so they should.
I think you do a really good job. Yeah.
Yeah, they do a good job. But, I listen to like New York sports radio. I very rarely hear a mention of the Liberty.
Right. We're a ways away from that.
But that being said, Zaz, I'm very positive about how the media coverage has grown. I mean, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with how much we're talking about it now. I'm thrilled that we're having these conversations.
What do you think of the way the players react to the way the coverage of the league has changed? Because they're getting more coverage, which coming with that also means more criticism, which should be okay. You see the way the men's professional leagues are covered. There's a lot of criticism. A lot of it's unfair, but there's a lot of criticism. What do you make of the way the players are adapting to how the league is covered now?
I think they're doing fine. I mean, I think, there's been some narratives here over the past couple of seasons that, oh, maybe the players like aren't ready for this or aren't ready for that. Like, I think the bottom line is people are watching the games. The ratings continue to go up. People are going to the games. The business is doing well. And so for whatever you want to say about how the players have or have not responded to media coverage, doesn't really matter because all the metrics are there. And so I think that part of the issue, we talked about this last year, was like, a lot of people are learning, and especially legacy media folks. And I don't blame anybody. I'm like, come on board. Like if you're getting into it and maybe you haven't covered it traditionally or you're learning, great. I want more people coming on and learning. So I'm giving you
me.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, when you and I have conversations about it, you're open to like, okay, what's going on? And you're willing to go to somebody like me or somebody else who has history covering the league to give you some perspective. Because I do think, sometimes last year there was just, there's hot takes out there, and that's the nature of media nowadays. It's, short snippets on social media, the context gets lost, and that can, I think, be a detriment at times to just how good these athletes are and what they're achieving, how impressive it is. But when you really are able to get into it, more coverage is better. More people paying attention is better. And I think that the players recognize that, there's more of a spotlight than ever. And that's why I think they chose the All-Star game to go ahead and make sure they're sort of putting a statement out there as to what's happening and hoping that people get some education in the process. But people also have to be open to learning because the league is growing so rapidly and the landscape is changing so quickly that people have to give it a chance, number one, and sort of let go of some of these long held preconceived notions. Yeah. I know for years, especially when I started covering the league in 2018, and that was pretty much rock bottom in terms of ratings, right, for the league. And you couldn't find any coverage on it. You couldn't find information. And so you would hear the nobody cares, nobody watches, nobody cares, nobody watches. And you kept hearing that year over year. But then all of a sudden it was like, wait, people are starting to care. Wait, the ratings are going up. Wait, the ratings are going up. And it's like some people that just aren't open to it, just still think in their head. You still see people comment, nobody cares. And it's like, wait a minute, a couple million people watch that game. So actually, so it's just like a matter of, wrapping your head around, like, this is a very different situation. This is an evolving league. And, when you compare it to the NBA or other leagues, like these other leagues, they've just been around so much longer that I think a lot of people today commenting may not necessarily remember some of the growing pains. But when you really compare, the W is in a great place. And even, you have to also understand too that I wish this wasn't the case, but I do think some societal norms, the W has had a lot more to overcome than a lot of male professional leagues.
Sure. Maria, excellent job.
Thanks.
We have never had more intelligent WNBA talk on ZASLOW Show 2.0. Where can we see or hear you next?
So the next gig I have planned is going to be another ESPN show on the app, Facebook, YouTube, so digital platforms, coming up August 12th, leading into, I believe it's a Fever Wings rematch. Hopefully we'll have Caitlin Clark back. I'm not sure. The first meeting between these two teams was awesome, even though the Wings got smoked, but Paige Beckers played great. And the Wings, don't look now, they're playing way better. They just knocked off the Liberty the other night. Arike Gumbawale is hitting her stride this season. She had an injury earlier on. And, I think I'd be curious, Zaz, to see if the Wings, similar to what the Fever did last year, second half of the year, they started to take off, ended up making the playoffs. The Wings have a ways to go, but I'd be really curious to see if they keep playing this well, if they can make a late season surge and get back to the playoffs. That'd be super exciting.
Maria, awesome job. Really good to have you on the show and see you again. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. See ya.